Her husband leaves her alone to go to Paris. It's an awakening. Welcome to Mrs. Humpty Dumpty. Thanks for visiting. A ticket to Betrayal. The train station buzzed with life, filled with the rhythmic clatter of rolling suitcases, hurried goodbyes, and the shrill whistle of an approaching train. Lin May clutched her ticket to the mountain retreat, her fingers tightening against the paper, the edges damp from the sweat of her uneasy grip. It had been years since she and her husband Chen had taken a trip together. She had imagined this weekend, just the two of them, away from the sterile silence of their home, away from the weight of unspoken disappointments. Chen had promised. "This time will be different," he had said, his smile as practiced as ever. Yet, as they approached the ticket counter, he patted his coat pockets with exaggerated concern. "I must have left my ticket at home," he murmured, furrowing his brow in mock frustration. "You go ahead, May. I'll catch the next train." Her lips parted, an instinctual protest rising, but before she could voice it, the loudspeaker blared the final boarding call. Chen stepped back, urging her forward with a gentle but firm push. Helpless against the press of time, she boarded the train, glancing over her shoulder to see his figure retreating beyond the glass. He never intended to come. She felt it then, a distant ache curling in her stomach, a whisper of something wrong, something rotten. The mountain retreat was everything she had hoped for. Still lakes, crisp air, pine trees standing like sentinels against the misty cliffs. But peace eluded her. Chen's messages came infrequently, short and distant. Swamped with work. Talk later. She was used to it. That detached, obligatory tone. On the second evening, her phone buzzed. A WeChat notification. A mutual friend had posted photos from their Paris trip. May scrolled lazily until her breath caught. There, in the soft golden glow of the Pont d'Arts bridge, stood Chen. He was smiling, truly smiling, in a way he hadn't in years. His arm curled around a young woman draped in an expensive coat, her manicured fingers resting possessively on his chest. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace that shimmered like a cruel joke. May's heart pounded. She knew that necklace. Not because she had seen it before, but because its delicate design mirrored the bracelet Chen had given her for her birthday. The bracelet she had worn that evening when she had waited alone in their dimly lit apartment, convincing herself that love could be measured in gifts. She had been a fool. Paris had been her dream. She had spent years studying its art, imagining herself walking through the Louvre, sketching on the banks of the Seine. On the night of their engagement, she had whispered to Chen about her longing to visit. And now he had gone. Not with May. But with that bitch, a slow, suffocating pressure built in her chest, but the tears never came. They had no place here. Not anymore. She packed her bags in silence. May returned to the apartment late in the evening. The moment she stepped inside, she felt it, absence. Not just his, but something deeper. The air itself had shifted, emptied. A home drained of meaning. Her eyes swept the entryway. Chen's shoes gone. His coat, which he always draped lazily over the chair, missing. The faint scent of his cologne had already begun to fade. Her heart pounded. She reached for her phone with trembling fingers and dialed his number. Disconnected. Cold prickle crawled up her spine. She opened WeChat, sent a message. Message failed to send. Blocked. The finality of it pressed down on her chest. Her phone rang, shattering the quiet. Her mother-in-law. She answered without thinking. Lin Mai. The older woman's voice was sharp, filled with that particular brand of disapproval May had long grown accustomed to. "What have you done to my son?" May stiffened. "He hasn't spoken to me in days," the woman continued, her words cutting, rapid. "What did you do? A man like Chen doesn't just disappear. And honestly, May, I don't blame him. You should have expected this. What kind of wife refuses to bear children? What did you think would happen?" A sharp, bitter laugh clawed up May's throat. There it was. The same accusation. The same unspoken demand. She had always been the outsider, the art teacher, never the obedient wife, never the dutiful daughter-in-law. They had tolerated her, at best. But when she had refused to put Chen's name on the deed to her apartment, the in-laws had made their disdain clear. A house was a family asset, they argued. A wife does not own things alone. But she had held firm. And now she was grateful for it. Maybe if you had given him a child, her mother-in-law spat, he wouldn't have left. The line went dead. May stood in the empty apartment, the words reverberating through the silence. It wasn't anger she felt. It wasn't even sadness. It was freedom. She moved with purpose, a strange, eerie calm settling over her. She pulled open the closet and dragged out the expensive suits, the carefully pressed shirts, the silk ties she had once handpicked for him. Every last trace of him went into boxes. His toothbrush, his expensive cologne, the framed photographs of their wedding gone. She reached for the wedding photo on the shelf, staring at the frozen image of the man she had once loved. She turned the frame over and let it drop into the trash. By morning, the apartment was stripped of his existence. May sat by the window, her tea now cold in her hands as the sunlight streamed into the apartment. This place, once filled with shared laughter and fleeting promises, now felt like a hollow shell. But it was hers. Chen hadn't contributed a single yuan to its purchase. The house had been a gift from her parents, bought with money they had saved for years. And now it would become the key to her freedom. She reached for her phone and called the real estate agent who had helped her buy the property years ago. The agent, Mrs. Liu, was warm and professional, though slightly taken aback when May explained her intention to sell. "Are you sure, May? This apartment has grown in value. It's a good investment." "Yes," May replied firmly. "I'm sure. I want it sold as quickly as possible." Over the next week, May immersed herself in the process of preparing the apartment for sale. It was therapeutic. Each small act of cleaning and organizing felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. She scrubbed away the faint marks on the walls, tossed out old furniture she no longer cared for, and donated the few sentimental items she didn't want to carry forward. Every box she packed seemed to lift a weight off her shoulders. Mrs. Liu brought prospective buyers to view the apartment. May greeted them politely but distantly, keeping the interactions brief. As offers came in, she reviewed them with cold precision. This wasn't just a financial transaction, it was the final step in erasing the life she had built with Chen. On the day the sale was finalized, Mrs. Liu handed May a set of papers and smiled. "Congratulations, May. You've made a smart decision. The new owners will move in next month." May took the papers and nodded, her grip firm. For the first time in years, she felt light, as though an invisible chain had been broken. With the proceeds from the sale deposited safely into her account, May wasted no time. She booked a ticket to Paris, the city she had dreamed of for so long. But before leaving, there was one more stop to make. Her grandmother's house stood in a quiet countryside village, surrounded by lush fields and rolling hills. The house had been passed down through generations, and though it had seen better days, it still held the warmth and love of her childhood. It had been years since May visited, but she could still picture the small garden where her grandmother used to grow chrysanthemums and the dusty attic filled with old treasures. Before leaving for Paris, May made arrangements for the house. She called local contractors to discuss repairs, ensuring the place would be ready for her return. The thought of starting fresh in that quiet, timeless space filled her with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. When May's plane landed in Paris, she stepped off with a single suitcase and a sketchbook tucked under her arm. The city greeted her with crisp winter air and the hum of life. She checked into a modest hotel near Montmartre, a neighborhood brimming with artists and charm. For the first time in years, May allowed herself to simply be. She wandered the cobblestone streets, pausing to sketch the winding alleys, the intricate facades of buildings, and the way the light played on the Seine. She spent hours in the Louvre, standing in awe before the works of Monet, Degas, and Van Gogh. She didn't rush or plan her days, instead letting the city guide her. One evening, she sat at a cafe, sipping a glass of red wine as she flipped through her sketchbook. Her drawings were raw, filled with emotion, pain, yes, but also resilience and hope. A sense of pride swelled within her. This was who she had been before Chen had come into her life, a dreamer, an artist, a woman with a vision. Back in her hotel room, May pulled out her phone. Against her better judgment, she opened WeChat and scrolled through old conversations with Chen. Her fingers hovered over his name before she finally hit delete. The chat history vanished, leaving her screen blank. Paris swept May into its rhythm with the grace of an old friend. From the moment she arrived, she found herself enchanted by its charm, the winding streets of Montmartre, the quiet beauty of the Seine at sunrise, and the grandeur of landmarks she had only seen in books. For once, she wasn't rushing to meet someone else's demands. This trip was hers, and she was determined to savor every moment. At the Musée d'Orsay, where May's journey took an unexpected turn. She had been standing in front of Monet's water lilies, her sketchbook open on her lap, when a voice behind her said, "If I stare long enough, I might learn how to paint like this." Startled, May turned to see a young man with a tangle of dark curls and a scarf that seemed both oversized and charmingly ridiculous. He had a broad grin, his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. "Or," he added, scratching his chin theatrically, "I'll just keep pretending I know what I'm doing." May raised an eyebrow, amused despite herself. "Is that your strategy?" "Pretending. Works so far," he said, sticking out his hand. "Julien, studentat de École des Beaux-Arts." Well, more of a professional procrastinator with a student ID. May couldn't help but chuckle, shaking his hand. "Lin May. Former art student." "Former?" Julien tilted his head curiously. "That sounds tragic." "Not really," May replied, shrugging. "Sometimes life takes you elsewhere." "Well, Lin May, life has brought you here, and that's what matters," Julien declared, waving his hand dramatically toward the museum around them. "If you're not busy pretending you know about art, I'd love to hear what you see in these paintings." May smiled, a rare spark of lightness warming her chest. "I'll think about it." What started as a chance encounter turned into an unexpected companionship. Julien, with his boundless energy and youthful humor, seemed to appear wherever May went. He popped up at the Louvre, offering to translate the Mona Lisa's expression, "She is judging us," and joined her for a stroll along the Champs-Élysées, where he insisted they stop at every patisserie. First, May found his puppy-like enthusiasm overwhelming, but she quickly realized how much she enjoyed his company. His unfiltered joy was contagious, and it reminded her of the passion she had once carried as a young artist. Together, they explored the city, its galleries, street art, hidden bookstores, and even tourist traps she would have avoided alone. At the Eiffel Tower, Julien insisted she take a photo. "You're in Paris, May. You have to post it, or it didn't happen." May rolled her eyes but obliged, standing with the iron lattice glowing golden behind her. Later, she uploaded the photo to her social media with a simple caption, "Dreams deferred are still dreams." Post quickly drew likes and comments from friends and acquaintances back home, many of whom hadn't heard from her in months. For the first time in years, May didn't feel the need to explain herself. She let the picture speak for her, a woman smiling in a city she had always dreamed of visiting. As the days passed, May found herself filling her sketchbook with new drawings, quick sketches of Parisian rooftops, street performers, and even Julien, who had a habit of sitting perfectly still when he knew she was sketching him. "You make me look mysterious," he teased one afternoon as they sat by the Seine. "Like I have a secret life." "You do," May replied, smirking. "You're a student who doesn't study." "Touché," Julien said, laughing. Their conversations drifted from light banter to deeper topics. Julien spoke about his struggles with self-doubt, and May shared pieces of her own story, the betrayal, the decision to leave, and her hopes for a fresh start. Julien listened intently, his playful demeanor giving way to sincere admiration. "You're brave, you know," he said one evening as they walked beneath the Eiffel Tower's glow. "Most people wouldn't leave everything behind and come here." May shook her head. "It doesn't feel brave." It feels necessary. Necessary is often the bravest thing, Julian said, his voice soft. May began documenting her Parisian adventures on social media, not to show off but to capture moments that felt like milestones in her rediscovery. She posted a photo of the Louvre's glass pyramid with the caption, "Finally face to face with the masters." A sketch of a Parisian cafe went up with the note, "Coffee tastes better when it comes with inspiration." Each post received a flurry of comments, some from friends who were thrilled to see her thriving and others from Chen's circle who asked nosy, veiled questions. May ignored the latter, focusing instead on how good it felt to share pieces of herself without hesitation. One evening, Julian convinced her to visit a small gallery where students showcased their work. The energy in the room was electric, a mix of nervous artists and enthusiastic spectators. As they wandered through the exhibits, May felt a familiar itch, the desire to create, to contribute, to be part of this world again. "You should do this," Julian said, gesturing to the vibrant paintings around them. "Your sketches are better than half of what's here." May laughed, shaking her head. "I think they'd notice if I wasn't a student." Julian leaned closer, his grin mischievous. "Who says you can't be?" As her time in Paris neared its end, May felt a bittersweet ache. She had come to reclaim her dream, and in many ways she had. But she also knew this was only the beginning. Julian, for all his charm, was a fleeting presence, a reminder of the joy and spontaneity she had once buried beneath years of sacrifice. On her final night in the city, Julian surprised her with a small gift, a sketchbook with a note tucked inside. It read, "For the artist who's finally found her muse again. Don't stop creating, May." She hugged him tightly, tears stinging her eyes. "Thank you, Julian. For everything." It was late evening when May finally decided to turn on her old phone. She had avoided it for weeks, fearing what might surface. As the device powered up, notifications flooded the screen, dozens of unread messages, each one more biting than the last. The first few were dripping with sarcasm and cruelty. "Enjoying your little holiday in Paris, are you? Pretending to be an artist again? How pathetic. Do you think anyone there takes you seriously? You're just a sad little woman playing dress-up in a city that doesn't care about you." May's jaw tightened as she read through the string of insults. "You'll regret selling the house. Do you even know what you're doing with your life? Paris doesn't suit you, May. You'll come crawling back when you run out of money." The final messages were laced with desperation. "Answer me, May. Stop ignoring me. You think you've won, but you haven't. You'll regret this." May's hands trembled, but not with fear. The words stung, but they also fueled her resolve. She could see Chen for what he truly was, a man desperate to control her, even from a distance. His anger didn't matter anymore. She had taken back her life, and there was no going back. Without hesitation, she deleted the entire thread and powered off the phone for good. Chen's voice, once so overpowering, now felt like nothing more than a faint echo. May sat quietly for a moment, staring at the blank screen before standing to make herself tea. The past was behind her. Her focus was on the life she was building. Days later, May found herself stepping into the sleek, modern offices of a global art and design startup in Shanghai. Her heart raced as she approached the receptionist, who directed her to a conference room. The email had mentioned the CEO himself would conduct the interview, which both thrilled and unnerved her. She had spent hours preparing, practicing her answers, and refining her presentation. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw when she walked through the door. Sitting at the head of the table, wearing a sharp suit and an easy smile, was Julian. May froze, her mind racing. He looked just as she remembered from Paris, though more polished. His unruly curls were slightly tamed, and the scarf he always wore was replaced by a tailored tie. Yet the same mischievous sparkle in his eyes remained. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Julian was the first to break the silence, his grin widening as he leaned back in his chair. "May, is this real or am I hallucinating? You're the CEO?" May finally managed, her voice tinged with disbelief. Julian laughed, gesturing to the room around him. Guilty as charged. Though if you ask me, CEO sounds way too serious for what I actually do. She stared at him, still trying to process. You didn't mention this in Paris. You didn't ask, he said, shrugging with a playful grin. Besides, it's not exactly the most exciting topic when you're wandering around the Eiffel Tower. May found herself laughing despite her shock. Julian motioned for her to take a seat, his demeanor shifting to something more focused but still warm. So, what brings you here, May? Not that I'm complaining, it's great to see you again. She placed her portfolio on the table, sliding it toward him. I applied for the freelance designer position. I didn't expect this. Julian opened the portfolio, flipping through her work with a look of genuine admiration. This is incredible. You didn't tell me you were this talented. May smiled, her confidence growing. Because I don't lead with resumes or titles. I let my work speak for itself. Julian chuckled, nodding. Fair enough. And your work is definitely speaking. Tell me, May, what do you see yourself creating here? For the next half hour, May outlined her vision for blending traditional artistry with modern design. She spoke passionately, her voice steady and assured, as she explained how she could bring fresh perspectives to the team. Julian listened intently, occasionally nodding or asking thoughtful questions. By the end of the interview, Julian closed her portfolio and leaned forward, his expression sincere. You've already impressed me, May. Position is yours if you want it. But there's one condition. May raised an eyebrow. Condition? You have to promise me you'll keep sketching, Julian said with a grin. Because your talent deserves to be shared, not hidden. She laughed, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. Deal. As May walked out of the office building, the weight she had carried for so long felt lighter. Paris had been her rebirth, a city that reminded her of the dreams she once had. Now this new opportunity felt like the next chapter, a chance to reclaim her artistry in a way that was entirely her own. Later that evening, she shared a post on social media, a photo of her sketchbook with Shanghai's skyline in the background. Caption read, "The future is a blank canvas. Time to create something extraordinary." As the likes and comments poured in, May smiled. Chen's voice no longer mattered. This was her life now, and she was finally living it on her terms. 2 months passed, and May had fully embraced her new life. The freelance design position at Julian's company had turned into more than just a job. It was a place where she could flourish creatively. Her days were filled with vibrant brainstorming sessions, late nights perfecting her projects, and moments of laughter shared with Julian and her new colleagues. Julian, true to his word, encouraged her to keep sketching. His playful charm and unwavering support were a constant presence in her life, though May kept their dynamic light-hearted. For now, she was content with her focus on herself, her career, and her art. The box she had sent to Chen remained a vivid memory. Among the clothes, trinkets, and other remnants of their life together, she had placed one final item, a set of divorce papers, signed and waiting for his signature. She had left no note, knowing the papers would say everything she needed to. It was a chilly afternoon in Shanghai when Chen found her. May had just stepped out of the office, her sketchbook tucked under one arm, when she heard a voice she hadn't expected to hear again. May. She froze mid-step, her breath catching in her throat. Turning slowly, she saw him standing a few feet away. Chen looked disheveled, his usually pristine suit wrinkled and his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He didn't look like the composed man she had once married. He looked desperate. What are you doing here? May's voice was calm, though her heart raced. Chen took a step closer, his expression a mixture of anger and pleading. What am I doing here? What are you doing here, May? So you disappear, sell the house, run off to Paris, and now you're living this new life? With him. His tone turned bitter as he gestured vaguely toward the office building behind her. May's jaw tightened. What I do with my life is no longer your concern. You sent me divorce papers, Chin said, his voice cracking. How could you do that without even talking to me? Talking to you? May's voice rose, her frustration bubbling to the surface. You didn't seem interested in talking when you blocked me, when you ran off to Paris with your mistress, and when you sent me vile messages insulting me for reclaiming my life. Don't stand here and act like you're the victim. Chin flinched, his face flushing with shame. I was angry, May. I didn't mean, you meant every word, she interrupted, her tone cutting. And even if you didn't, it doesn't matter anymore. Our marriage was over long before I left. The divorce papers are signed on my end. All that's left is for you to accept it. Chin opened his mouth to argue, but May held up a hand, silencing him. This isn't a conversation, Chen. It's done. Go back to your life and leave me to mine. For a moment, Chen simply stared at her, his shoulders sagging under the weight of her words. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. May stood rooted to the spot for a moment, her breath coming in slow, steadying waves. She had dreaded this confrontation, but now that it was over, she felt an unexpected sense of relief. The chapter with Chen was truly closed, and she could move forward without looking back. That evening, she met Julian at a small cafe near their office. As she recounted the encounter, Julian listened quietly, his brow furrowing in concern. When she finished, he leaned back and gave her a long, thoughtful look. You're stronger than you think, May, he said finally, his voice soft but firm. Most people would have crumbled under all that, but you didn't. You rebuilt yourself. May smiled faintly, stirring her tea. I didn't feel strong at the time. I just knew I couldn't stay in that life anymore. And now? Julian asked, leaning forward. How do you feel now? May looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I feel free. In the months that followed, May continued to thrive. Her work gained recognition within the company, and she began collaborating on larger projects that blended her love of art with innovative design. She even started sharing her sketches online, building a following that appreciated her raw, honest style. As for Julian, their friendship remained a steady constant. He was still as playful and supportive as ever, but May noticed a subtle shift in his demeanor, a deeper care that went beyond their banter. She wasn't ready to define what they were, but for the first time in years, she felt open to the possibility of something new. One evening, as she sketched the Shanghai skyline from her apartment balcony, May posted a new photo on social media. It was a picture of her sketchbook, the divorce papers peeking out from beneath it. The caption read, "Some endings are necessary to create room for new beginnings. This is the end. Thank you for listening."